Foreclosures Daily. ForeclosuresDaily.com is your trusted nationwide real estate lead partner. And as you know, I've been a client of theirs since 2018, and they have the best leads around. So if you're looking for those off-market properties across the United States, they have a nationwide reach, and they connect investors, realtors, attorney, first-time home buyers with high-quality leads. And I can speak to that personally because I've used other list companies, and I've gotten lists that don't have any real estate. And if you're a realtor or a real estate investor, that's, you don't really need a list that has no real estate. They've been in business since 2004, and they are the internet's top destination for detailed, timely real estate information. And so I use their pre-probate leads, and I get them every Wednesday morning. I get my list of leads. So they have expertise that you can trust. My guy, Joe, Angela, they've been with the company for a really long time. I've been a client, like I said, since 2018. And it's a commitment to excellence, and it ensures that you receive the most up-to-date data available. So how are they different? Well, number one, they have real estate leads, right? So the leads that you get all since 2018, let me just say this. Since 2018, when I've been using their leads, there's never been a time when the lead did not have real estate. So it might not be the right real estate for me, but they always have real estate. So it's real estate focused. It's depending on the type of lead that you get. You could get them delivered daily, weekly, or monthly. And they have the property appraisal information on it, so you can look at it, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. How does that even make sense with short-term rentals, so that you can benefit by knowing, okay, am I going after a $100,000 property or a $10 million property? And then, unlike reports from other companies, their data is farmed exclusively for the real estate market, whether you're a realtor, whether you're an investor, and they prioritize delivering up-to-date targeted information to keep you ahead. And we're going to talk more about that targeting and segmentation tonight. Big word. So what kind of leads do they have? Well, Case and I know this is the first time that you've probably been on this and heard about them. So probate leads and pre-probate. So I get asked all the time, what is the difference? So pre-probate is someone passed away maybe just like a week, 10 days ago, and they have not filed probate. And it doesn't matter what state you're in, you can get pre-probate leads. In Texas, we can actually buy and sell properties without actually going through the probate process, whereas in Florida, all the properties have to go through probate. However, that does not mean that you cannot contact the families before they do that. There's absentee owner list, distressed, evictions, auction list, les pendes, divorce, code violations, inheritance, tax lates, and cash buyers. So I personally have worked with the absentee owners, the distress, the evictions, code violations, and divorce, and of course probate and pre-probate. So the pricing, we used to have like a sheet that said, okay, this, that, and the other, but you know what? Memorial Day just happened, and so they had a big Memorial Day sale. They have 4th of July. There's probably today's National Paper Airplane Day, and if you ask them, they probably give you a discount for that, right? So they have pricing that's based on, it's kind of customized for what you need. So if you are in an area like LA County has a lot more people than, say, a county in Tennessee, so there's going to be more leads in a county with more people than there is in a smaller county. So for me, I do secondary markets, meaning the DFW area. I'm in Dallas, but I also do Granbury, which is in Hood County. So I actually market to 7 different counties because some of them are just smaller, and I don't need to, not that I don't need to, what I'm trying to say is that because they're smaller, I can do more. That's what I'm trying to say there. So your marketing dollars, you can target how you're going to spend your marketing dollars, when you're purchasing the list and doing your marketing, however you're going to market to them. So not only does Foreclosures Daily, they don't just want you to be successful, they just don't want you to buy their list. They want you to be successful. So that's why I have these webinars every month to help you, like, okay, well, how do I market to these lists and the types of investing and or listings that you want to go after. But they also provide you, like your representative with the company will provide you with the 6-step mailing campaign. It's the same one that I started with. Ready to use phone scripts if you're into calling people. They have ways to get you into having your postcards and letters professionally designed. There's links for discount mail rates. So they're going to help you kind of walk through how you can market so you could get your list literally tonight and start marketing tomorrow. It's that simple. I wrote a book called Winning Deals and Heels, and you get a copy sent to you. That is my story with 9 other women, real estate investors. And you'll be able to have exclusive links for reduced skip tracing rates. So they want you to be successful. So they don't just sell you a list. They also teach you how to market to that list. Now, we're going to get into what we're going to hear, what you came here for tonight. So Foreclosures Daily, they have the leads. And then you go, and this happens all the time. What do I do next, Nancy? So this is what these webinars are all about. How can we make those leads work for you to get the opportunities that you're looking for, whether it's listings, whether it's buying properties. You know, tonight we're going to focus on short-term rentals. You know, in the past I've done long-term rentals. But tonight we're going to talk about short-term rentals, and we said this is like the gold hidden in ForeclosureDaily.com leads, because when you market to these properties, there's a certain research that you're going to want to do first. So let's just say that you want to purchase a short-term rental. Now I'm going to interchange the words Airbnb, short-term rental, but it's the same thing. I'm talking about properties where it's short term, meaning that it's not a year's lease. It could be midterm rentals, but we're going to focus more on kind of Airbnb types of properties. That's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So what we're going to be covering is, number one, identifying where in those leads are those short-term rental opportunities hidden, how you segment your list, because not all the leads on the list are going to be potential short-term rentals. So we're going to talk about, well, what kind of information do you need before you do that? We're going to look at, on a very high level tonight, how to evaluate different markets and how to estimate income. So you might find a really, really good property, and let's just say, I'm just going to pick, I don't know, pick some city anywhere. I'm from Kansas, so I'm just going to say Abilene, Kansas. Okay, that's where Dwight D. Eisenhower was born. And that's probably the only claim to fame. They do have a college there or whatever. But let's just say I found a property in Abilene, Kansas, and I was like, dang, will that make a good short-term rental? Probably not, right? As if I found something in, say, the DFW area next to a university and or a university here or medical facility, or Galveston, Texas. Now, Galveston, Texas is a really cool place to go, but right now it's not the best place to purchase a short-term rental because that market is really, really saturated and people are having a hard time making money there. So why in 2026, do short-term rentals matter? Now, if you got on this bandwagon back in 2021, 2022, you were in the gold, right? You were making so much money off of your short-term rentals because people didn't have to worry about, you know, they were working from anywhere. So the short-term rental market just boomed, right? Then after COVID, what happened was all these people bought a short-term rental in all these different areas and the market became saturated. But then also, as things kind of opened up, people weren't traveling like they were just to work from home. So, but the benefit of having a short-term rental in the right market can produce higher income. It can generate 2, 3, 4 times higher than a long-term rental. You can have multiple exits where you can flip it, you can hold it, you can rent it as a midterm. There's a whole bunch of different ways, you know, if you buy it right, that's what we're talking about. Hidden sellers, distressed owners of vacation or second homes are highly motivated. And I'm going to talk about my story, how I was almost a highly motivated seller because that's why we have our guest on tonight, is because I have a lake house that was performing poorly. And before I hired my awesome property manager, I was about ready to sell that thing because it was just sucking me dry. And then you have to look at where is there a growing demand. So you can see that there's a little bit of research that goes into, the right short-term rental. So let's talk about some facts. So the way I did this training, this webinar tonight, is I didn't want it to be like, oh, how do you manage a short-term rental, or how do you, tell if a property is going to be a good short-term rental. We're talking more about, you have your lead list, and if you want a short-term rental, when you're marketing to your list, what should you be looking for? So the facts today in 2026, they are operational businesses and not passive income. So back in 2022, yeah, you could just throw a property up there, boom. If you knew how to run Airbnb, you could make a lot of money. Now, lots of things have changed, not just the market saturation, but all kinds of zonings and restrictions and HOAs saying you can't have a short-term rental anymore. Airbnb has changed their algorithms, Airbnb charges. I mean, there's just, I could go on and on. Reviews, visibility, and systems that drive performance. And Kason and I are going to talk more about that later. And you know what? Not every property should be a short-term rental. So I have a story about someone that bought a short-term rental in Kansas City. I love Kansas City. There's a lot to see and do there. Beautiful old brownstone property, just beautiful, beautiful. And for the first, 2 or 3 times he had it up on Airbnb, it did really, really well until the property itself was beautiful. The location was not. It was next to a dump, a vacant dump property, right? So it wasn't safe to walk around. So that person, after like 6-8 months, ended up selling that property at a reduction because it was second wind, because it was a good property, but it was in the wrong place. Now, foreclosures, daily leads, and short-term rental opportunities. So your lead list is already full of motivated sellers. And we talk about this, no matter what you're trying to find, the lead list, if you know how to market it correctly, you can find off-market properties. Whether you're a realtor looking for lead lists, listings, as an investor, I'm looking to buy my next long-term rental, my flip, my short-term rental. So you just need to know what categories that you need to target. And so there's probate, distressed vacation homes, tired landlords, and out-of-state owners. So I've talked about, I'm not going to go into each of these, but probate properties and pre-probate are usually where I have the greatest success, and for 2 reasons. Number one, they're not on the MLS, so these properties are not going to be on the MLS that we're talking about. And number 2, most of the heirs of the inherited properties, they just need to get rid of the property. Typically, you're looking at someone who's been in the property, they've lived there for a while, maybe mom or dad have passed away, the kids live out of state, and they don't have the time or the money to start managing the property, to flip it or whatnot. So that's why I kind of say probate and pre-probate. And also because it's a little bit of emotionality is tied to it. So your skill set, it's not just calling somebody up and saying, hey, do you want to list your house or sell your house? There's a little bit more skill set that goes into that. So the biggest mistake, and Kason and I are going to talk about mistakes later, but buying a property before you do the research. So before you even put that first stamp on the first direct marketing piece that you might send out, or the first phone call that you make, if you're targeting short-term rentals, there are some simple research that you need to do first so that you won't be wasting your time if you're specifically looking to buy a short-term rental. So number 1, zoning restrictions. So if you know, and I'm just going to use Dallas, Texas, because I live here. So if I know I want to buy a property in Dallas, Texas, they got a lot of zoning restrictions. So, and it's not just the city that you have to worry about, it's also the HOAs. So the city might approve them, but the HOA, so I live specifically in Frisco, Texas. So in Frisco, you can have a short-term rental. It just has to be listed. You have to get a permit and you have to register and pay the fee or whatever. But individual HOAs in Frisco prohibit short-term rentals. So it's not just knowing the city and what kind of zoning, it's also the particular HOA. Then the next thing you need to find out is there market over market oversaturation. So where my property is that we're going to be talking about tonight is in Lake Granbury, Texas. And it's a little crowded for short-term rentals because they love short-term rentals in Granbury. So a lot of investors over the last 2-3 years have bought a ton of properties there. So there's an oversaturation in that market. And then you also have to know, like, okay, you might have the best property, but is it going to make any money? And how often will it make money? So if you have market oversaturation and low occupancy, and you're banking on making, $3,000-$4,000 a month, that's probably not going to happen. And then management complexity. And I know how to manage properties, but you know what? Sometimes you need to bring in the big dogs because they have the expertise, they have the time to do it. And, it's more than just throwing up, a lease and putting a tenant in it. There's so much more that goes into managing a short-term rental. So the first thing that we want to talk about is where do you get that information? So you want to, and again, I'm going to go through this kind of fast because I want to make sure Casey and I have time to talk about actual stuff. But, oh, wait, somebody said view. What are they saying? Hold on. Let me go to view. Walter is saying view. What does that mean? Does that mean you can see it, Walter, or no? You had your hand up and it said view. Can everybody still see the screen? Just put your hand up if you can see it. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So first off, you need to validate the area that you want to purchase the short-term rental in, right? So there's a whole bunch of websites that you can go to, but one of the most reliable ones, there's two that I use. Kaysen might have some more info on this, but first of all, I would look at Airbnb as a person, as a guest, right? I'm not logging into my account. What I'm doing is I just want to see how many short-term rentals are in a given area, right? So I do this exercise, I teach realtors this. So if you were to go to just pull up Airbnb on your phone or computer and type in any city and put in, that you're booking it for 6 people, put in some city and just hit enter. Put in some dates, just make it up. And then it'll come back with a number. And sometimes that number is 3 and sometimes it's 3,000. So, you want to kind of know how many properties in a given area are already doing Airbnb. And then there's AirDNA. So AirDNA is where you can go and I always did the free, Kaysen I'm sure goes into the more detail, but AirDNA, you can go in there and type in whatever property address that you have and it'll come back and give you a preliminary nightly rate, occupancy, and all of that. So you can at least start off, because if you find a place and it says, oh, well, you can make $50 a night, well, you're probably not going to want to spend your energy finding a short-term rental in that area. And then you want to find the property that you're looking for. So this is all about your business model. So you do have to kind of think about it. So for example, when I talk about long-term rentals, my go-to is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 15 to 1,800 square feet. I like corner lots, no pool. That's my long-term rental. But on a short-term rental, it depends on what market. So you almost have to think about who is going to rent your short-term rental. Is it people who are traveling for work? Is it people who are going to, I just got back from Disneyland. Is it going to be somebody traveling to a touristy destination? So then through list segmentation, which I'll talk about in the next slide, you'll be able to target those from the leads. And then marketing, only then. So once you've kind of figured out, okay, there's not too many properties here, I can probably make this much money, then you can take your Foreclosures Daily lead list and start segmenting it based on the information that you found. And that's probably seems, so let's talk about this a little bit more. So occupancy rates, what this means, it's kind of almost reverse. Think about it, occupancy rates means, okay, I usually look at vacancy rates, right, when you're looking at long-term rentals. So occupancy rates means how often in a 12-month period is that property going to be, have somebody in it paying, right? The average daily rate, that's usually the nightly, And then seasonality, that just means like, okay, whatever market, whether you're going for traveling nurses, you're going for people on vacation, you're going for the beach, the mountains, whatever. So, or a ski resort, or a ski cabin. So will there be any reason for people to come there in the springtime, right? So you have to think about that. Tourism demand. So I think it was this last Memorial weekend, they said that it was the most people that have traveled in like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. But are they going to the destinations where your short-term rental would be? We've already talked about local regulations. I know a guy here in Dallas that he buys 1-bedroom, 1-bath condos, and he keeps them going all the time. He makes a ton of money off of them, and they're for business travel. So he's found a way to get into that market. So that's his business model, and that's what he focuses on. Again, we talked about oversaturation and then revenue trends. So year-over-year growth. Now that's kind of hard to do if you're getting your very first one, but you can look at sites like Airbnb, and what you want to do is look at these indicators and at least have 5 of them for the area that you're wanting to market to. So that's really what we're talking about. We're trying to figure out, okay, you get your lead list from Foreclosures Daily, and then because you're probably saying, oh, I want to market in Dallas, or I want to market in Orlando, or whatever market it is. And if you're going after short-term rentals, what type of property? Because they have that information on their list. Okay, this is more about the different platforms. So there I talked about AirDNA, Airbnb, VRBO, city zoning and county regulations. Now, most of the time you can get this stuff off of their website. Not always. I think the HOA is probably harder to do, because the HOA, one of the things that I personally have learned about HOAs is that they can say today that they'll say, the short-term rental is okay, and then, next year they could vote it out. So you just need to make sure you have an exit strategy, and you could look at Google travel trends. Quite frankly, you could probably go on ChatGPT and ask it to do research on short-term rentals as well. Okay, so let's talk about list segmentation. So you've decided, yes, I want to get a short-term rental. I want to find it through my leads of Foreclosures Daily. So how would I go about marketing from my list? So number one, if you've identified the area that you want to invest in, so their lists are by zip code. So it has the city, it has the city, the zip code, but you could get really targeted with the zip code. Then within the zip code, you can go to Google Maps, or you can go to, if you're a realtor, there's all kinds of ways to get this information. Then you could go into HOAs, right? You can identify. So one of the things I do when I do my list segmentation is I already know what the high crime zip codes are. So I don't market to those zip codes for my short-term rentals. Okay, I just don't. And then for me, let's say I was going after traveling nurses. So maybe I want 4-bedroom, townhome, condos, a house, something like that. So I can see on my Foreclosures Daily list the type of property, because if it's a mobile home, I'm not going to, or land, I'm not going to market to it for a short-term rental. I can see it's single family, land, multifamily. Sometimes it's vacant, but I can tell what kind of property type it is, so I can pull those out to do my marketing. And then I can also see the how many bedrooms it has. And I think it has the square footage. I don't think so. But it has the number of bedrooms, it has the number of bathrooms. So that's where I would start. And then it's going to have the price point, the appraised value, right? Not the actual value of the property, but it'll say, so for example, if I'm marketing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and I'm looking for a condo or townhome, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but I don't want like a $450,000 townhome. I want more of a, $100,000 townhome or $150,000 townhome. I can look at my list and I can segment all of those properties out as well. So I can match the cost, the acquisition cost, to my short-term rental needs. Now, maybe I have a slide that shows you, like in, I think it's one of the cities in Florida, it's very high-end, and so maybe I want to have a very high-end property. I want my property, and I know I'm going to have to spend $500,000 or higher. So that's also on there. So you can see how you can have a targeted campaign just for short-term rentals using the leads from Foreclosures Daily when you use the segmentation technique. And then you can also look at proximity to attractions. So let's just take Disney World, right? Disney World probably has its own county slash zip code. And so if I wanted to find a short-term rental in the Orlando, kind of close to Disneyland, Disney World, I could use Google Maps. There's so many ways I could find out what the zip codes are around that area. Then I would need to know, well, do people because we stayed in the resort because it was just easier because of the traffic and so on and so forth. And then the other thing you can look at is investor and second homes, because the other thing that you can find out is who owns the property, right? So now this kind of goes into probate and pre-probate, and maybe this is a second home for somebody, so absentee owners. So now you can kind of start segmenting this list to target not only just the property, but also who owns the property. Okay, so this goes into the cities. So traditionally high revenue cities are like Four Corners, Florida, St. Petersburg. I might have skipped once. No, I think it's there. Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge. I know I tried to buy a property in Pigeon Forge, and dang, it's just a little out of my price range, but it's nice up there. Now, what smart investors do, so the first thing you're going to do is do your legal check, like the zoning and restrictions and things like that. Then you're going to do a market check. And then you're going to say, okay, I don't want to just buy a short-term rental just to have a short-term rental. I need an exit strategy. If the market says nobody's going to have any more short-term rentals, what are you going to do with that property? Or if it starts underperforming. Now, we kind of went over this, so I'm going to skip this. Okay, because I want to get into my story and I want to bring Kaysen on. So I'm going to stop my share for just a second here. And I want to introduce you guys to Kaysen. Kaysen is my property manager for one of our lake houses in Granbury, Texas. And so the backstory is we've owned this property for about, 4 years. And I use it personally. And last year, we grossed. Okay, we grossed under $7,000. And let's just say, that was not a good number for Nancy and her family, and we felt like it was just sucking us dry, and that we were going to have to sell it. So my husband and I had the conversation earlier this year that said, okay, I don't have time to do all the things that I could do. Like I would go in occasionally, but the last straw was in January, early February, I went on to Airbnb, and granted, I was only on one platform, Airbnb, because I was not having a good time with VRBO. And I couldn't even find my property. I went to like page 15 and it wasn't even showing up. So number one, if your property's not showing up, guess what? You're not going to get any bookings. And if you don't get any bookings, then, you're not going to make any money. Now this property is not exactly right on the lake, but it's like a 5-minute boat ride. It's got a huge dock. It's really cute. We always get 5-star reviews. So as far as location and, it was pretty staged, pretty good, I thought. And so I was like, okay, we need to find somebody I said to my husband, and he was against it. Kaysen, sorry. My husband said, well, won't we have to pay them? And I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. Right now we're making zero money, and I would rather pay, so even if we hire somebody, they don't get paid unless they make money. So, we don't really have anything to do. So I found Kaysen. Actually through Airbnb co-host. His name popped up. And what I did before I called him, or maybe I called you first and we chatted, but what sold me on Kaysen was he had some properties in a neighboring tiny little town that I don't even know why people would go there. It's about maybe 25 minutes from where my lake house is. It's not on the water. And he had about 12 houses in this little town, and every single one of them was booked in February. Okay. And I was like, man, he must know what he's doing. So anyway, I called him up. We chatted. He sent me the contract. And I think within 3 or 4 days of me signing the contract, he had our first booking. And it's been awesome. And I think already this year, he's already made me more money since February than I made all of last 2025. So, Kason, welcome to the Foreclosures Daily webinar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I know he told me he was a little camera shy and he doesn't, so I put him on the spot earlier. So, but we're going to just talk about, when you start working with, owners, what are some of the, top three things that you see people not doing or they should be doing?
Well, yeah, for people self-managing, they mainly think they can just throw it on Airbnb or one of these websites and it's just going to print money. And th you really have to treat it kind of like a job. Like you have to keep up with it. You have to keep tweaking things if it's not working, if you're not getting bookings. You have to optimize, your title, descriptions, photos, photo orders, all that matters. And if you're not doing the little things like that, then you start creeping down the list. And then if you creep down the list, you stop getting bookings, which makes you creep down the list even more on Airbnb's algorithm. So you just get in this like sliding habit where you can't recover. So that you got to keep treating it like a job and keep updating everything and making sure your pricing's right, your photo orders right, title, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and you also created us a website, right? Or it's like a not necessarily because you have your company, which we're going to throw up here in a minute. But we got the domain, right?
Right.
And then so
Yeah.
you're kind of about branding as well.
Yes, yeah, I create all of our properties their own direct booking website, so you can bypass the Airbnb fees, the VRBO fees, booking.com, all that. And if someone books directly on your site, you as the owner make more money, and then the guest pays less money because we're not upcharging for these Airbnb fees. So yeah, I make these direct booking websites, and it's attached to my main website, but you can go on there and find it and book directly.
Yeah, and I have a slide that shows kind of the what the property looks like or whatever. So when you and I talked, and were you a little nervous because you knew I was an investor and, like, okay, like, does she already know what she thinks, what she knows or whatever? Or how
A
do you
little
work
bit.
with
I was like, I don't know if I can add anything if you already know it all, but
Well, obviously I didn't know it all, right? So, because you do way more sites than I did, right? And you had a lot of success with VRBO.
right, yeah, we're on almost all of them that you can imagine. Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com, Google Vacations, Hopper, direct booking website, and might be one more, but yeah, we're on all those and that just more eyeballs, you get more bookings and
And do you feel like since that's your primary career is, doing the property management for the Airbnb, you're able to be more focused? Because I think even myself as an investor, we do think we know it all, and sometimes we say, oh, well, we shouldn't, hire somebody. Like my husband, he was like, well, why are we hiring somebody? We're investors. I'm like, well, because our time is valuable, and if I'm, having to spend all this time on this one property to make money, I'm actually losing money because I can't do my marketing on my other foreclosures daily leads. I can't look for another property. So that was what I saw.
right. It's like, where do you want to spend your time? And if you don't really want to spend your time managing, messaging guests, doing all that for your Airbnb, then it's better off just hiring a professional manager that is their job. So that way you can spend your hours doing what you need to do to make more money elsewhere.
Right. Well, and do you feel that, as the property manager, because, you have to deal with the cleaners, which I personally found very challenging, especially in a smaller, market. I think,
Mhm.
you and I talked about, I had already been through about a half a dozen cleaners. And you're more local, so do you feel like that gives you an advantage to people that don't live local, that don't know the lay of the land, so to speak?
Yeah, because I do stop by periodically after cleans and just double check their work. I don't tell them when I'm coming, so I kind of just surprise them when I'm doing that and go in and just see how well they've done. So that's one advantage of being local that I can do. I can do these periodic checks on them, and then I can talk to other investors in the area and other hosts in the area. We have our own little Facebook groups and messages that we can talk to each other and be like, hey, this person's great. you can use this person, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's good to have those connections locally.
Yeah, it is good. And I'm going to say something about other, other managers, because I get asked all the time about, how do you find a property manager? And you can go on the Facebook groups, but when I see people that are supposed to be managing my property and they're just traveling all the time, I'm like, okay, well, how are you? That's great, you're traveling, but who's managing my property? You know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So, well, for people that are, maybe looking for their first short-term rental, what would be some sage advice that you would say, that you would give them?
Well, you went over a lot of it in your slideshow on finding the right market. Are you talking big picture like that, like
Ye-
first where to look?
Yes.
Yeah. So finding the right market, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. You want to go somewhere with low regulation. Um, there's some places that have banned Airbnbs entirely. Others that are just they want the tourism, they want more people in their town, so it's a lot more relaxed. So go somewhere with low regulation, and then you want to go somewhere that's not oversaturated, like you already said. And then when you do find a market that's not oversaturated, you want it to have some sort of an attraction. So you have a property on Lake Granbury. It's a really nice lake in Granbury, which Granbury has just won its fifth award for the most historic downtown in all of,
Mm-hmm.
is it
And I love,
America? I think so.
yeah, and I love Granbury because they just promote tourism. And you're right, Granbury actually loves Airbnb because they are kind of their infrastructure can't do more hotels, and so they, welcome. And we have a Granbury address, but we are not in Granbury proper. But I think
Right,
you only have to get a permit from them anyway. And the
right.
Tammy at the Visit Granbury, she's just, oh my gosh, she's amazing. So,
Yeah, they love tourism. They love bringing people into town. So finding a town like that with an attraction like the lake or the historic downtown, it doesn't have to be like Disney World that's going to attract because everyone's trying to buy an Airbnb there. But it can, like Stephenville, the town you were talking about, it's about 30 minutes from Granbury. We have a college there, so we get grandparents, sports teams coming into town. We get workers because the school is growing like crazy. Tarleton State just went D1. Workers are everywhere. They're building new stuff. So we get all these people coming to town, and that's what attracts our occupancy. That's what keeps us occupied. But you need an attraction. And if it's out in the middle of nowhere, if it's like, hey, my grandma had this house, I'm going to rent on Airbnb and make $1 million, it's probably not going to do well unless there's a reason someone wants to come to that town or that area. So
and a
you have
reason
to
that
have,
they would want to go out in that area, right? Like, like
right.
if you're going to offer hunting or, whatever it is. But yeah, you're right. You have to kind of go, okay, what's going to attract people?
Yeah, and
Um,
if there's not one big attraction, then the house itself has to be the attraction. You have to have amenities that want to bring people in for an event or, a getaway type of deal.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like about Granbury because they're always having something going on. So if y'all haven't been to Granbury, Texas, you are missing out because it's a cute little town, and I don't think the residents are too fond of all the tourism from time to time. But and then they're actually so let's talk about this because it's kind of a hot topic, and we'll see. But the data centers, because there's been talk because there's a in Hood County, that's where this property is that we're talking about. They are building or trying to build data centers, right?
Right.
And you and I talked about that, and they were saying that the data centers are going to suck all the water out of the lake, blah blah blah. And I said, well, and I asked you, I said, well, what do you think will happen in a few years if that happens? And you said, well, they'll all need a place to live.
Yeah, it's going to bring in a ton of workers. I mean, they're going to need a place to stay while they're working on it for the next couple of
Yeah,
years.
yeah. And
That's
they have
the
a,
only, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say there's not a lot of positives to that, but it is one positive if you're a homeowner because
Yeah, yeah.
new
So,
builds and Airbnbs.
well, Kason, I want everybody, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides again because I have your contact information here. So let me go grab that really quick. And I so appreciate it. He was like, what? You want me to be on camera? So I appreciate that. All right. First off, can you see my slides again?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get to that. Okay, here is Kaysen's information. Even if you're not in Granbury, you might be in the Texas area. And he also might be able to consult for a fee if you are looking for a property manager or you're trying to start a property management company in your area. So, Kaysen, how do you say it's Elysian, right? Like Elysian vacation.
It's Elysian. It's very
Elysian. All right. Did I get
yes.
everything else right? So, but that's his
Yes.
phone number, and you can email him, and he's very, very responsive. You can also text him. And there's a picture of our Airbnb. And Kaysen did he did tell me a few things that we needed to do, but he's done a good job of like the inventory. I haven't had to worry about it. I think the biggest thing for me has been just the time that I've gotten back from you managing. I mean, yes, you're making us money, but also you're, saving me some time. So I'm going to see.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to let everybody, let's see, do we have any questions that you guys would like to ask Kaysen before he's going to leave? And I hope my voice is not echoing still. So if you have some questions, go ahead and drop them. Nope.
And if y'all have questions for me and want to email me or text me or anything off camera, y'all can do that as well.
Yes, yes. All right, well, I'm going to go back. So, Kaysen, thank you so much. If you want to stay on, you can, but I know you got little ones. Whoops, what did I do there, Nancy? So feel free.
All
They're
right. Thank you for
saying
having me.
thank you. Thank you. So, all right, I'm going to go back, guys, there's a couple slides before we end. So, I wanted to just show, like, even myself as an investor, and I've been doing this, and I used to do property management, and we used to have more Airbnbs, and I did it all, but bringing in a professional management wasn't really admitting defeat. It was sort of, kind of, yes, because I am a control freak, but it was a strategic decision that our family made because, number one, it was just costing us so much money to have this short-term rental that wasn't making any money. So I've been very, very happy with his performance. He was able to right away get us improved listing visibility. I don't know about better guest experience because we did have 5, but with more guests that we've had in, that's been really good. We've had way more stronger occupancy. I think a lot of Facebook groups that I see, people have been really struggling this year for bookings. And I've been, since February, we've been pretty much booked. Almost, and not just over the weekend, but he's got we've had weeks, we've had people stay for 2 weeks. So all the things that he's doing has just been making our little lake house very profitable. And he has consistent systems. And I think that's what I was lacking, is that I just didn't have the time. I'm doing a whole lot of other things. And, so sometimes when your attention span gets taken away, that's what happens. And so we were looking at being one of those motivated sellers if we couldn't figure it out. So if I hadn't have found Kaysen, and it is important to find the right property manager, because you want someone that, is vested into your property, and you want to make sure that they are not being paid unless you're being paid, right? Because I have consulted with other owners when their property's not doing well, and there are some property managers that have a flat fee, and so what they'll do is they get their fee regardless if you get any bookings. So what you want to do is make sure that you're paying that percentage, and you're having somebody actively working your property each and every month. So what did we learn? Well, we talked about this through this webinar, the fundamentals first. So, you pretty much have to know, for the short-term rental strategy to work, you need to know who is going to be staying at your property and why would they be coming to your property, right? So you want to know, okay, am I going after families? Am I going after workers? Am I going after nurses? As Kaysen mentioned, there are several different ways to get bookings, and some people like to do what's called direct booking. That means you create your own website. You could advertise on Facebook and things like that, but to really get kind of the most out of more people seeing it, because if you think about direct booking, that means how are you going to get it out? How are you going to get your property out there? You want to do your research before you do marketing. So what I do is I get my list from ForeclosuresDaily.com. And then I say, okay, do I have leads in this particular area? So we just recently started looking at Florida, and a couple other places, Colorado. And so I'm looking for a short-term rental in those areas. I have a specific area that I'm looking for. So when I get my list from Foreclosures Daily every week, every couple weeks, then I look at, okay, here's the zip code. I've taken out the zip codes where there's high crime, and then I'm doing a targeted marketing to those properties. So I'm segmenting strategically for the short-term rental. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not marketing to other types of properties, my long-term rentals and things like that. And then you want to make sure you get your data. So like the person that I told you about that, bought this really nice brownstone in Kansas City. It was a beautiful home, it was tricked out, really, really nice. But, it just, an DNA might have given him some numbers, but the thing is the location, because if you think about it, people want to feel safe when they go on vacation, right? They might want to go outside on a nice night and, take a walk around the neighborhood, and they're not going to want to do that if you have, a dump next to your house or broken down cars or whatever. And then you want to know your local regulations. So I brought up Dallas, and I should have researched this before I got on here, but I'm not really looking to buy a property in Dallas. But Dallas has been going back and forth for almost 2 years now about the short-term rental restrictions. And as of last year, it still had not been resolved. So if I were to buy a property in the Dallas area, I'm probably not going to be focusing on, getting it in Dallas County, because that's where they're still figuring out if they want to even allow short-term rentals. And then you do have to have systems to drive performance. So the reason I gave my property as an example is, I had thrown it up on Airbnb. We used to do a whole lot more when we had more, but then when we got rid of some of our short-term rentals, and we just had a couple, I was like, well, I'm not going to pay for this or that or whatever. So I just said, nope, I'm going to do it. Well, then what happened? They didn't perform, and I had to get a property manager, which you met. And there's Cason's information. Now, I want to be able to offer you guys a couple things. So I'm going to actually come back to this slide. This is our motivated seller lead conversion blueprint. But I wanted to share with you tonight, my daughter Kelsey and I, we feel that, sometimes these webinars, we have a lot of information to get on, and, sometimes people are like following up with me later. So we wanted to find out how interested people would be to have maybe every other week or twice a month or something like that, where we would have a free training, and it would be specific to some topic, like go more into depth on short-term rentals or how to flip a house or something like that. And it would be live training with myself. Maybe we need to dive in. So if that's something that you would be interested in, we're doing a poll. We haven't set it up yet. I want to see how many people are interested. Then just email me at Nancy@KBN and just let me know what day would work and whether it would be AM or PM, right? So morning or afternoon. And it would be Monday through Friday, because I kind of keep my weekends for my grandbabies. So, but if that's something that you would be interested in, just let me know. And then we are going to offer this again. We offered this last month, and it seemed to be very popular, but it's our motivated seller lead conversion blueprint. And basically, this is a free download. You can scan the QR code. There's the link, and it's specific to ForeclosuresDaily.com about how to work the leads, how to just take the data and what you should do with it. It has some scripts in there and things like that. So if that's something that you think would help you, again, no strings attached, just a freebie for you guys. And then lastly, I want to thank everyone that showed up tonight. I know it's hard that day after a long weekend. Even I had a little hard time going, oh my gosh, I have to do the webinar tonight, because we moved it because I was out of town. But today is Happy National Paper Airplane Day, so you're clear to take off for your investing journey. I want to thank you again for joining me tonight. And remember, done is better than perfect. And next month, we're going to be meeting on June 16th, and I'm going to go over why most investors never get their first deal. And I know that can't be you, right? So it's about 10 till. I'm going to stay on here for a little bit and see if we have any questions. And I'll go back to that one slide here. This is where you can email me if this is something that you're interested in, and here's the where you can download it. So, and do we have any questions tonight? Oh my gosh, you guys are being quiet. No questions? Except my voice was echoing. Sorry, I think I might have to get a new mic. Well, you could all tell me, did you have a good 3-day holiday? Just do your hands up. How much? Okay, Peter, good question. You know what? It just depends on so many things. So what you should do is reach out to your Foreclosures Daily person, and they can go over, the area that you want, how often that you want them. So it depends on a whole lot of things. And then, they always have a discount, right? So, and if they don't have any specials going on, say you want the Nancy discount, they have a discount for Nancy too. When I go back to the free download, here you go, Yvette, there you go. Is there a cost range? So yes, there would be a cost range because it's going to depend on a lot of things. So number one, the counties, how many counties that you're going to go, because you could go one county, you can go for 90 days, you can go for a month, you can go for a year. So I will tell you this, the more you purchase and the longer that you purchase the leads for, that's the biggest discount that you get. And if you don't have a rep, email me, but you should be able to email ForeclosuresDaily.com or email me and I will forward it to Joe or Angela if you're not already working with somebody. Okay, Kimberly asked, what types of homes on the list should you look to purchase for short-term rentals? So again, Kimberly, it depends on a couple things. So number one, the area. Let's just talk about the area. So if you're looking at, cabin in the mountains, a house by a park, business travelers. Some people make their short-term rentals off of insurance, like people whose homes burn down, so they work with insurance companies. So if you're just asking me kind of generic, when I go look for a house, I look for a house that sleeps 6 to 8 people, right? And depending on where it is, because if it has a septic system, so like our lake house has a septic system, and it could sleep 10, I just don't want 10 there. So, and then Airbnb had a bunch of rules about, you couldn't have more than 16 people in your house. So it really depends. I know I'm being kind of vague about it. So I would say if you were looking at attractions in terms of vacation destinations or workers, then I would say, look for a 3 or 4 bedroom house. How do your leads compare with foreclosures.com? You mean, is that a different company? ForeclosuresDaily.com is the only one that I've used. It's been a while. I don't know if they're called a different thing. So I haven't used any other lead list since 2018. So I can't speak to foreclosures.com. I can say this, most lead people, it depends on where and how they get the leads and what type of leads that you're looking for. So you have to be able to compare apples to apples. So like a lot of companies don't do pre-probate, and those are the types because they're kind of more labor intensive to get the information. And then foreclosure lists, like lists of houses that are going under foreclosure. I mean, you can get a lot of that stuff just pulling off of the MLS. So it depends on the type of list that you're looking for when you get ready to compare different companies, and that's what I would say. Okay, guys, I have about 5 minutes. Any more questions? If I didn't cover anything here, just email me at nancy@kbnhomes.com. I'll be happy to follow up with you. But other than that, I appreciate again everybody who joined me tonight. I always have a lot of fun doing these webinars, and I really appreciate Kaysen for joining me tonight. So, alrighty, well, with that, I am going to sign off if there's no more questions. I don't have Kelsey looking over I think I got all the questions. Yes, I did. Okay, one more minute. Going. Okay, guys, I'll see you next month. And if you do think of a question, just go ahead and email me, and I will catch you next time. Have a good one. And remember, it's National Paper Airplane Day, so if you have kids, make them a paper airplane tonight. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.